Welcome to Catch and Go. In today's telecast, we're going to do part 2 of the title called The Year 2027, The Difference Maker. And right off the bat, you need to quickly grab a pen and a pencil and write down the word of the Lord. And the word that the Lord brought to me: the window is closing on civilization. That is exactly what I want you to write down. And that was the word of the Lord that came to me. The grace of God came about a week ago, and he said, the window is closing on civilization. I want to go ahead and give you the PowerPoint scriptures. Actually, my PowerPoint verse is Matthew 24, verse 3 and 4. But you need to pencil in Daniel chapter 12, verse number 4, because God simply gives Daniel's instructions. He says, for you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of end. I'm going to stop right there because I'm going to say it for the third and final time. The word of the Lord came to me about a week ago, and the grace of God said, the window is closing on civilization. Now, we need to ask ourselves a couple of questions. And one of the questions is that I'm going to ask you is, what is God really trying to tell us? And the second question is, why would God announce that right now and make a proclamation and decree and declare that the window is closing on civilization? It's very simple. And the reason is that God has every intention. The Lord came and delivered, and I heard something quick into my spirit, and I heard the word noise, and the grace of God said the word noise, and he said there's going to be a rattling noise on earth, and you need to prepare for the coming tremors, because God is about to shake the foundations of the heaven and earth. There's going to be a global shaking and a global reset. And I said to you in part 1, one world empire. Keep that in mind. So let me repeat the two questions that we all need to be asking ourselves. Not just believers, not leaders in Ephesians 4:11, but all of humanity in civilization, whether you're a believer or not, whether you're a pagan, a free thinker, or an atheist, or a world leader. You need to understand one thing. These are two questions that we need to ask ourselves. One of them is, what is God really trying to tell us when he says the window is closing on civilization? And the other one is why God announces that right now. And I said to you, very simple, straightforward, and God has every intention to simply bring about the removal, the separation, and God sending stern warning. But this is the second time that God spoke, besides a quick stir, and what the word that rose within me was the word noise, and then he said rattling noise. You're going to see that God is about to rattle the world. Not only rattle the world, and I've been saying that for the last consecutive weeks, and the glory of God is simply saying to world leaders, world power, world government, and God brought a divine utterance for the third time, I believe, and the glory of God said, global war, World War III, then he said the escalation, and you need to understand the stage is set and not being set. The other verses that I want to give you, besides Matthew 24, verse 3 and 4, and Daniel chapter 12, verse 4, is Isaiah 26, verse 20 and 21. You can go and read it in your spare time. And the final verse that I'm going to close with, and I've used that verse many times, is 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 7. The end of all things, it's at hand. And God is sounding the alarm that the glory of God said to me, are you ready? Checkmate. The Lord is about to score checkmate. The Lord is about to move the heart of world leaders, world power, world government to strictly go into war. And you're going to see global war, not only escalating, but things overnight becoming pitch darkness on the earth because God said what? He brought up the word noise and then he followed by the word rattling. And you need to pay attention to the two questions that I told you that we all need to be asking ourselves. Now, PowerPoint number 2 is Isaiah 26 verse 20 to 21. PowerPoint number 3 is One World Empire. PowerPoint number 4 is the establishment, the 11th hour establishment. And I simply want you to write down several things that are key when it comes to when the global crash happens. You're going to see the global oil crash. You're going to see the food crisis. And I did a title called The 11th Hour, The Establishment. And I want you to pencil in this as God wants me to remind you that early in 2022 or 2023, I believe, going into 2024, in the middle or latter part of 2023, I was going down, driving the highway, going to go to this place to be able to do my podcast, and the glory of God begins to speak to me concerning the 11th hour and the establishment, and then he begins to show me in bold white letters 5 things. You need to write these 5 things. And you see me getting a little bit sort of stern here because I am sending you a stern warning from God. When the total global collapse happened, these 5 things are going to be affected because of the shipping lanes and the shipping ports being completely, totally closed down at some point. And you're going to see Revelation 6:1. Write them down. The first one is grain. The second one is wheat. The third one is rice. The fourth one is wine. And the fifth one is oil. And I have told you over and over that that prophecy has been fulfilled when I did a telecast back in 2020. But we can go back into the early 2000s. You're going to see the global oil collapse and the crash coming. Not only OPEC crashing, and not only the Strait of Hormuz going up in flames. And the grace of God said to me, the Strait of Hormuz turning into pitch darkness. You're going to see that things are going to intensify in the Strait of Hormuz. You're going to see the battle for what God is showing me now. He's showing me the battle for the shipping lanes and the shipping ports, because everyone needs to confront Beijing, and there's going to be a global confrontation when nations will come together and confront Beijing. Not only Beijing's motives, their intentions, but also pay attention. The Lord said to the Black Sea, to the Baltic, but also to the Taiwan Strait, the South China Sea, the Pacific Island, and the glory of God is showing me the Panama Canal. And America needs to now take full control of the Panama Canal. PowerPoint number 4, I said the establishment. And then I told you the 5 things that you're going to see, that there's going to be major glitches, major hindrance when it comes not only to the global drought, global famine on a global scale, but also pestilence. And I said to you a few minutes ago, the writer from Revelation 6:1. PowerPoint number 5, a new chapter in civilization. And I said in part 1 of the title called The Year 2027, The Difference Maker, I simply came out and said, there is no other year on earth that civilization is going to be more affected by than 2027. 2027 sets the global stage for global unrest, global turbulence. The Lord is showing me turmoil. And remember, in part 1, I basically touched from 2 Chronicles 15. There was no peace coming in, and there was no peace going out. And going forward in 2027, you're going to see global unrest like you've never seen before. And the Lord begin to speak and begin to recite Matthew 24, verse 22. And that is why I said that you need to pay attention to those words that God spoke about a week ago when he said the window is closing on civilization, all of humanity strictly in the bubble, in a scramble, trying to survive. And what you got here is global chaos, global confusion, and what's coming, it's the global glitches. You're going to see glitches from everywhere. And God simply, and trying to tell civilization that civilization needs to understand 1 Peter chapter 4, verse number 7. Now, PowerPoint number 6 is 1 Peter chapter 4, verse number 7. PowerPoint number 7, judgment. Because in part 1 of this title called The Year 2027, The Difference Maker, I believe that the grace of God began not once, but twice. He began to recite Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27 and 28. And then the glory of God did something now. The glory of God shifted my eyes into the realm of the Spirit and showed me the 7,000 years. And we are entering that the grace of God has been speaking concerning those 7-year Jubilee cycles, but the end of civilization, the end of the grace church period, and the glory of God simply on August 18, 2026, the glory of God came out at 8:53 p.m. And this is something that he's been saying since 2020. The glory of God said, first fruit. And I believe that when God has been saying first fruit, I believe with all of my heart, is simply speaking concerning the 144,000. He will seal that 144,000. Not only the grace of God just said to me, the first resurrection. That's why I said, look, if there's any title that you want to listen over and over, it's part 1 of this title and part 2 of this title called The Year 2027, The Difference Maker, and the glory of God simply saying that the window to civilization is basically coming to an end. Now, PowerPoint number 7, I said judgment. And the grace of God is making it very clear for the last several years, but especially he's making it even more clear in 2026, especially where God has been warning us that going into the fall of 2026, lights out. Because more than likely, I'm saying more than likely, I'm not saying it's going to be confirmed, but you're going to see the battle between the left and right when it comes to the two-state solution. And let me make this very clear. It doesn't matter who tries to delay the two-state solution from being fulfilled. That scripture from Joel 3:2 has to be fulfilled, and it will happen in God's perfect timing. You can resist all you want. At some point, Joel chapter 3 verse 2 will be fulfilled, the mandate of that prophecy. Now, I want to begin to close, but I want to focus on one thing, and that is you need to concentrate and focus also and pay attention to Galatians chapter 4 verse 10. That's the substance, that's the verse, that's the key verse to the title, the 11th hour, the establishment, where I spoke from there, where it talks about times and seasons and months and years. And the Lord is saying you are in for a rude awakening, because the global reset is coming, the global shaking, and one world empire and the establishment of a new world order and the global digital ID and global digital currency. It's going to accelerate. And let me make this very clear, that at the very beginning of the year 2027, first day, right off the bat, you're going to see what the Lord said to me on the first day of January 1st of 2027. You know what the Lord just said? You're going to see turbulence. And I said turbulence in the sky. But I want to go back to Galatians chapter 4 verse 10. I said there are months, there are seasons, and there's years. And the glory of God is simply saying, keep in mind that I gave you 5 key things to the title, the 11th hour, and those things carry not only weight in substance when it comes to civilization, when it comes to food at the table, when it comes not only to our daily lives, when it comes to things that we need to purchase when we go to the supermarket and into the grocery store, into the produce section, or whatever section it is. And the Lord just flashed something to me. And this totally is mind-boggling and blows my mind away, because the Lord opened the window, took my eyes into the realm of the Spirit, and the grace of God reminded me that back in 2020 and in 2021 and in 2022 and in 2023, the grace of God kept reminding all of humanity and all of civilization that there was a time when I was in Walmart and we were shopping, and then the glory of God took me into this open vision and showed me that all the shelves in Walmart were basically empty. And that's why God just said to me, the global crisis. There is a global crisis, and civilization is going to find itself at a junction and at a point in life where I did a title that one of my PowerPoints was what? The cry of civilization. And the Lord just said these words, and the wailing from the walls of Jerusalem. Keep in mind Zechariah chapter 12 verse 3. But I want to repeat the 5 things. That's grain, wheat, rice, wine, and oil. And everyone will be scrambling, not only trying to find some rice, trying to find oil, and also wine, and the rest of the things when it comes to wheat and grain. And the Lord said, barley. But just the other day, as I'm meditating upon the word of the Lord and preparing this part 2, the glory of God said to me, season of wheat. Listen to what the Lord said. Season of wheat. Could it be that in the year of wheat? Could it be that in the year of the wheat? That is the time. That is the season when the Lord takes us up in glory, because the Lord just said to me, not only the day of atonement, God said, in Christ being the one sacrificial offering, and pay attention, because God's beginning to reveal his forecast when it comes to the rapture, that more than likely could it happen in the time of the season of wheat, not only wheat and barley, but prepare your soul for departure. I'm going to begin to close, and I close with this, and that is a new chapter in civilization. And I'm concerned because everyone seems to just kind of be all relaxed, sitting there in a place of complacency, just going about their normal day, not realizing that there's nothing normal when it comes to normalcy. The world has been flipped upside down, and God is saying that he's about to do one thing. Are you ready? He said he's about to shoot arrows. God's shooting arrows. And God showed me the word deliverance, where God will bring great deliverance to the soul of every born-again believer that is not only entangled in sin, but the mercy of God is going to be extended into a whole different level, where the Lord will have mercy on your soul. He will replenish your soul, restore your soul. And then the Lord came out with a 5th divine utterance, and I heard the audible voice of God said, when I said all that to you, he said, and then he will take you out. In other words, you will go up in glory in the rapture. The Lord said, shooting arrows. Then he showed me deliverance. God is about to bring a global shaking. God is about to deliver not only a timely miracle to your life, not only a timely miracle, but remember in part 1, I said that the year 2027 also is the year of cancellation. But also understanding one thing, that the grace of God talks about, that he who the Son sets free is free indeed, and the glory of God being the author and the finisher of your faith. I want to close with this one thing, And that is this. We're going to go back to those two questions because God did come out a week ago and said the window is closing on civilization. But if I was you, I would circle one thing, and that is one world empire, the establishment of a new world order, a global reset, and a global shakedown that will shake the foundations of the heavens and earth. And in part one of this title, the Lord opened the window, took my eyes into the heavenly realm, and he showed me the ground shaking and moving. And lately, you've been seeing not only turbulence, but there's been major earthquake in different nations and different countries, but you haven't seen anything yet because God is about to rattle the earth. The earth, it's on its last breath, gasping for air. And the glory of God simply saying that the Lord has every intention to bring about a new world order, a one world empire, and civilization needs to understand the year 2027, the difference maker, but 2027 lights out. It's a booming year. Not a booming year when it comes to the global economy or the financial markets. Global crisis, and a global crisis and world crisis on the world stage like you never seen. And the Lord took my eyes into the heavenly realm for the third time, and the glory of God showed me first a white horse by itself. Then he showed me the rider on that horse, not only riding that horse, and God simply saying that you need to remember that in part one, he said, Hebrews chapter 9, verse 27 and 28, to purify saints, we're going to find ourselves at the judgment seat. The books are going to be open, and God's going to open up not only the books in the Lamb's Book of Life, in the Book of Remembrance, but he's going to open up the first seal. And the Lord took my eyes into the heavens again for a fourth time and opened the window and showed me the Lord holding in his hand, and this is the second time that he's done this, holding the seven seals in his hand, and he's about to open the first seal, and he's sending stern warning to all of civilization. Get ready for the rider on that horse. Get ready for the Antichrist alliance. Get ready for the 10 king, and get ready that you're going to see even more the structure to the board of peace, and you're going to see other nations come in alignment with those that are part of the structure of the board of peace, and God simply sounding the alarm that he's about to score checkmate. But let me close with these two questions. What is God really trying to tell us? And he said to me that you need to be better prepared. Look what the Lord said. God sending a stern warning to civilization, saying that you need to be better prepared because the church is deeply sound asleep. Their heads stuck to that pillow, and there's preachers and pastors and evangelists and apostles and prophets that doesn't want to speak concerning the very global events that are happening and the things that are accelerating and the things that are shaping up. And then the second question, why would God announce that right now? Because God is simply saying that the chapter to civilization is closing quicker than you think so, but the chapter to the church grace and the church grace period coming to an end. And that's why I said to you, Isaiah chapter 26, verse 20 and 21, go read it in your spare time. I said Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. I said 1 Peter chapter 4, 7. I also said Galatians chapter 4, verse 10. When it comes to time, seasons, months, and year, and the Lord saying in this title, the year 2027, the difference maker, the glory of God saying, get ready for what he's showing me. In the words that he's showing me in the realm of the spirit is global crisis. I leave it right here. May the Lord so richly bless you. Remember to click like, share, subscribe, hit on the bell to receive our latest telecast. And I'll catch you on my next telecast of Catch and Go. God bless.